Let's discuss this all with Republican Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska, who's on the House Armed Services Committee and served nearly 30 years in the U.S. Air Force, retiring as a general. So, Congressman, you are in a really good position to answer this question. If this is part of the deal, sovereignty over parts of Greenland that are parts of U.S. military bases, is that really any different from how military bases normally operated, or embassies for that matter?
Well, I've been in a lot of bases overseas, and they give us a lot of leeway to build and do things that we want on these bases. And I'm sure in Greenland, because there's so few people, whatever bases we put there, we would largely be all American and could probably build what we want. And so I think this is probably just a continuation of what we've had since World War II. I mean, we had 15 bases there at one time. We're down to one. I think we may have an opportunity to add a base or two for missile defense and other things, but we could have done this without all the drama and hostility and tensions that were done. I mean, this is something that Denmark and Iceland, or excuse me, now I'm saying Iceland, but it would have been Denmark and Greenland, would have been glad to probably do over a very friendly discussion over a table. So I just think all the drama and angst was unnecessary.
So another question I have, and it would be fantastic if we could get Secretary Rubio or Hegseth on to talk about this, but another question I have is, it's not clear to me why Trump is negotiating this with the NATO Secretary General. NATO does not control Greenland. Denmark does. Denmark is part of NATO. I guess I just wonder, is this President Trump just ultimately surrendering, looking for an off-ramp on what has been an unpopular issue for him globally and domestically?
I have no doubt that whatever was agreed to, that Denmark also was agreeable to it. But, you know, the talks of invading was very off-putting to most Americans. I would say, the polling I saw, at very best, 14% of the Americans, I saw other polls with lower numbers, supported any kind of military operation against an ally. In the end, these guys are our allies, they're NATO allies, and threatening force was just wrong, immoral, and it's created damage with our relationship with our friends in Europe. And I've talked to them. I was talking to many of the elected leaders last night that were in D.C., and I've met with some more in my office today. There's been some long-term damage from all of this that we're going to have to rebuild. But I do think in the end, the president realized that the path he was going on was not going to happen. And all he had to do from the beginning was pick up the phone, call the leader of Denmark and Greenland and say, I would like to have a ballistic missile defense base and a few other things, and it would have happened.
So, President, as you note, there's damage done here, even if this is an off-ramp for the president. There has been damage done. A lot of European leaders are still worried about the future of NATO. Do you share those concerns?
I do worry about the future of NATO, and I want it to survive. I want it to be strong. It's been the most successful alliance, I believe, in the history of mankind, maybe outside of the alliance that led to victory in World War II. But this alliance has worked. It worked against the Soviet Union. It would work against, it's working against Russia with our Baltic friends in Poland. And so we want it to be strong. But I do think trust has been violated by the actions of our president, and I hear it from the leaders in multiple different countries, not just one, but many different countries. And they don't trust that President Trump will be there if they combat, if Russia, say, goes into Poland. They think it's all about transactionalism with him, and that we're not dealing at a higher level of what freedom, free markets, and defending that. It's going to take a while to repair this and restore confidence. And it's a shame, because I've worked with these countries. I served in NATO. They were with us in Afghanistan. Many of them were with us in Iraq. And they've been great allies, and we want to protect that, not undermine it.
I want to quickly just turn to President Trump's Board of Peace for Gaza. This afternoon, CNN's Caitlin Collins asked President Trump why he had asked Russian leader Vladimir Putin to join if he's so concerned about Russia taking over Greenland. Here's part of his answer.
Because we want everybody, we want all nations where people have control, people have power. That way we're never going to have a problem. Yeah, I have some controversial people on it, but these are people that get the job done. These are people that have tremendous influence. And if I put all babies on the board, there wouldn't be very much. So he was invited, he's accepted.
What are your thoughts?
Well, you can't trust Putin. He does not like our country. He wants to undermine us at every spot. He's an adversary to Israel, I would say, as well. So you can't trust him. I don't know why we would really want him on the board. I will give the president credit that, yes, Putin does have influence, but it's a very negative influence, and it's a maligned influence as far as our values and principles are concerned. So it would not have been my choice. There's other folks on there too I wouldn't include, but I will give credit here. The president got out those 20 hostages, and I think that's one of the biggest successes this past year. But I wouldn't have Russia on the board.
Absolutely. Big success, and also stopping the fighting between Israel and Hamas. Republican Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it.